One project that has had a great impact upon the community is the Selma Cafe, which works with local small farmers to help them network and distribute their goods to the towns and cities around this area of Michigan, primarily through a weekly breakfast that helps showcase our local food. Jeff McCabe and Lisa Gottlieb, the brains behind the project, are taking their work a step further, like getting the community together to fund and build hoop houses for local farmers so that they can continue to provide fresh produce through the winter.
Selma Cafe originally started as a weekly breakfast salon where we offered breakfast in our house every Friday morning, and every week we have a different guest chef come in and offer breakfast specials using ingredients that are sourced locally and seasonally. And people come in and they give a suggested donation, and the money that comes in first goes to purchase all the ingredients for the breakfast so that we're supporting the local food economy by sourcing from farmers and farmers markets and small businesses where the money's staying in the community. And the rest of the money goes out to microloans for farmers so that they can purchase hoop house kits. And our volunteers help erect those kits on the farmer's land, and we do it in a one-day hoop building, similar to an Amish barn raising. However we're building the local food economy, the fact that we're supporting small farmers, which they're struggling these days, that we're keeping money in the community. All those things are really important. We're making good food, we're serving it to the community. I think all that's really important. For me, there's another level, though, of bringing community together. I think people are really hungry, not just for good food, but for affiliation and connection with each other, not just through virtual communication like emails and texts and phone, but in person, working together in the kitchen making food, working together serving food, cleaning up, and then at the hoop house builds. So I think it's really, really important that we focus a lot of energy and attention on local farms and farmers to support that, to increase that, so that we really have control over our food supply, so we're not just getting food from corporate operations, but from farmers that we know and care about and have an investment in, and we want to encourage others to do that as well.
I guess what I would first do is just go back to the 10% Washtenaw campaign and the idea of what we are trying to build here. People spend a lot of their income on food, and people tend to spend around $3,000 a person per year on food, and in our county alone that adds up to $1 billion food system, and almost all that food comes from somewhere else. Even the food that comes through the farmers market, I think a lot of people just think of that as something that's almost a tourist opportunity in the middle of summer to do this quaint little thing of going and buying a little food, and they don't really get into the habit of buying food year-round. So besides just the volume of food that can happen when we start winter production, there's really just shifting people's perceptions of what the local food economy can be, and I think that's going to be one of the most important things we see as we build a four-season food system. So hoop houses are a key ingredient in that. They allow the farmer to plant on such a schedule that they can harvest something every day of the year. And then through that we're seeing both CSA programs, that community support agriculture program, move from just an 18-week distribution in the middle of summer to something that can go 52 weeks a year, and also the ability to feed people through other means, through institutions, through schools, where they have a year that goes almost the opposite of what the summer production would be.
There's also this idea too of reducing our carbon footprint. A lot of people don't like the idea of buying salad greens from California or even farther away during the winter, not just because we don't necessarily know the growing practices. Getting food from huge farms where the practices aren't safe, people get sick, and that it's coming from so far away, that with this ability to harvest food year-round in our area, suddenly there's more money staying in our community, but it's safer and it's growing our food shed.
So if we just supported summer production, I think what we'd see is even more price competition in the middle of summer, and just more people showing up with tomatoes in October at the farmers market, which is really not what we need. We don't need to be increasing production without scaling up the demand side of the equation. And so four-season production is really expanding into a place where there's lots of demand already. And like I say, if we can really have people think about this being available to them year-round, they can start to think about building that into their habits. And finance, I guess, being the other piece, that no matter how much we want to see this happen, there isn't a lot of finance, and no business sector has ever really emerged without a finance mechanism to help people invest in the production to make this happen. So that's where loans for hoop houses specifically was our primary target for helping this food system build.
There's also this idea too of reducing our carbon footprint. A lot of people don't like the idea of buying salad greens from California or even farther away during the winter, not just because we don't necessarily know the growing practices. Getting food from huge farms where the practices aren't safe, people get sick, and that it's coming from so far away, that with this ability to harvest food year-round in our area, suddenly there's more money staying in our community, but it's safer and it's growing our food shed.
Right now, the volunteers are the catalyst. They're the thing that makes it net about 66% of the money. We spend about a third of it on the food, and because of the volunteer nature, it can have a great impact. Same thing with the hoop houses. We hope to eventually have professional crews that go around and put these up. But what can make that happen, what can make it happen now, what can make it viable and less expensive for those farmers to start with as we're trying to prove this model, is volunteers that are just dying to come out and help. And not only are we building hoop houses then when we do these days, we have very big ideas for what can happen. It's going to take a lot of people doing a lot of work, and it can't even all organize under just this one umbrella. It needs to really be spread out through the community. So what we're building, besides hoop houses, we're building capacity. All these people are learning. They can put their own twist on it, go out and organize however they want, and continue this work. I mean, if you don't have something to say that's a model that is somehow better than what is being ramped up or what was existing, if you want to just poo-poo this because that's fun and hip to do, and leave us with this chemical agriculture system, consolidated agriculture system that is obviously not sustainable, that's not doing much to solve this problem. I think that what's going to happen is it might start out, like a lot of things do, as seeming elitist, expensive, etc. And it's going to take time for different people to really bring the kind of innovations and whatnot to make it more accessible. The main thing is that it provides a lot of jobs to the community, and it creates money in the community that stays in the community. And that really, you can't go wrong with that at any scale. And more than really looking forward to something, can we get to 100%? That's not the way I think about it. It's the next logical step, because there's so many different variables that we won't even know are going to happen years from now. Let's look at the ones that make sense right now. I really look at the science and the economics of what's going on. And the way that next logical step plugs in is through the very simple relocalization models like import substitution. And so if you've got a product that's being imported into your area and people are paying a certain price for it, and you can produce that product at the same price and give people that alternative, that's something that makes sense. It doesn't have to only be carried by the wishes of this community. It just happens on simple economics. And that's what happens with salad greens and hoop houses. They can be produced here for the same price that people are paying for Earthbound Farm or these other things at Whole Foods and other distributors. And they can go right on the same shelf and compete dollar for dollar with those products. And that's why we're starting again with these hoop houses. This is something that is very viable in the market right now.
Building a responsive and ecologically conscious local food system is something that requires investment, if only with our sweat and time. But the potential return on this investment is truly worth it. Together, we can build a sustainable, flexible, and delicious source of food that enriches your neighbors rather than some global corporate empire.